Oh my gosh, I'm disgusting. Welcome back to Doc Hand's Big Adventure. It's Reese over here at Rev It Up Automotive to check out the 1965 Mustang convertible that we're restoring. My dad, my wife Leah, and myself. There's a lot to be done, and it's Mardi Gras. James is a Shriner, so he's got his bike here. First things first, we're knocking off some rust with a wire brush. We're gonna paint some chemicals on the rust to restore the metal back to a better condition than the cancer, as they call it. And yeah, I am filthy dirty, and I'll show you how I got this way. Come follow along. Well, that was close. All right, we got them all here.
You got them all here?
Oh yeah. The whole family, we got Madeline, 2 months old.
So you can see there's already been some work done.
Yeah.
You got the new battery apron on. James and them took care of this. James and his crew, we are gonna do the floor like we discussed, yes. Correct? So they're gonna handle the floor. And the reason that is so that we can start moving the car around. Okay. And do what we gotta do. You're gonna sit here today and you're gonna grind all this rust, and Gage has already taken all the loose stuff off, and just knock it down and clean it all up so the paint's gonna stick. Okay. You're not trying to get all of this to the bare metal. You just wanna knock the rust off, and then you're gonna take this stuff, and I got brushes in there and a bucket, and any place there's bare metal, you're gonna rub this on it. Okay. Now I wouldn't worry about up here, because this part is probably gonna be changed. That's what we discussed, is the cowl, So, but all up in here, you'd want to push this stuff on, and all you're doing is converting the rust to a primer so we can paint on top of it and stop the rust from growing. Okay. We're trying to kill the cancer. Okay. All right. You don't put any in here. None on the inside, just the outside. Okay. They're gonna sand it. You're gonna sand it, and then they're gonna prime it and paint it so we can put the motor in. So the plan is to have the front half of the car cleaned with the motor sitting in it. They're gonna put the floor pan in it, and then they're gonna we can put the transmission and all of that in the car. The brake lines are sitting in the building. Awesome. The fuel lines are sitting there. The fuel tank's right there. The floor is right there. So all of that's here, ready to go in the car. So the car will roll, move forward and backwards, and stop, but it won't have any fenders or doors on it. I feel, in my opinion, with my 40 years of experience of fooling with these cars, the wiring harness this car is garbage. Yeah. And the reason I say that, you'd be ashamed to go through all this work. You turn that key on, and the rats ate through the wires, and you could put the car on fire. Yeah. There goes all the work you did, goes up in flames. Yeah. So that's my opinion. And they're expensive. Now the thing is, do we buy just the dash harness forward, or do you just spend another $200 or $300 and buy the whole harness for the whole car? This is some neat stuff that they didn't have back in the 80s when we built our car. So this is the shifter that's gonna go on the new 5-speed transmission you put in the car. So it looks like the old shifter, but it bolts to the modern shift.
Is that the transmission?
That's the transmission in there.
I've seen it.
So it's gonna look like it's a 65 transmission in the car, but it's gonna be a modern T5. Nice. This is the bracket that bolts on the back of the bell housing that adapts the transmission to your old bell housing. Bolts all included, shift ball, boot. So this won't go on right away, but to move the car, we'll have to bolt at least this on the car so we can move the car back and forth and stuff like that. So that's some new shiny stuff and exciting stuff, but that's after the floor is done, transmission's in, and he's gonna do the brake lines and all, and where it'll move. That's what we're trying to achieve first. So anyway, I'm gonna take a few more parts home, and I'm gonna bead blast them for you. Okay. But I'm about done. Right. I'm gonna do your hood hinges. I'm gonna do these 2 braces right here. I'm gonna take them home with me, bead blast them, paint them, and bring them back to you. And it's time for whoever you hire or you to start doing the rest. Right. My 67 Mustang is painted, and we went to put parts on it last night, and they hadn't polished it yet. So we said, no, we're not gonna rush this. But my car will be painted and polished by next week. And so I'm not gonna be working on this anymore. I'm gonna be putting my car together. And again, I'm not a restoration shop. I'm just a friend who likes to play with these things. And I've been a part of the hobby as long as your dad has, but I've done a few more cars than him. So I've restored about 3 or 4 Mustangs that I've kept and sold. Restored, I bought the convertible, the Boss, now the 267s. I don't know if I did another old one. Thunderbird. My dad's 57 Thunderbird. Let's go take a picture of the transmission real quick so you can tell them this is the new transmission going in the car. And then I want to talk to you about a few other things. So you see how the screws are right here? So you would take these screws out and a new shifter goes in there and bolts to this. No. But that's your new transmission, all rebuilt.
Jeez, that thing's fine.
It's going to be nice. Also, we need you to take these 2 panels off the car. This is the problem. The bones are good. So I don't want you to get discouraged. Right. You know, you got good frame rails, you got good structure on the whole car, so the bones are good. The skin's a little tough. I mean, it's like a guy who got in a motorcycle accident. His bones are good, but boy, he's got some road rash. Yeah. This car's got some road rash. The thing is, though, you gotta fix the car right, or at least try to. What's gonna happen 5 or 10 years down the road, it's gonna start blistering up again. And what's going to happen, even though you have it in the garage, the first time you get caught in the rain, water's going to start seeping in different, or you try to wash it, and that's where you're going to spend some money. And that's where most of your money's going to go. Because right now, this car's going to run and drive in a few months with floors in it. You keep moving forward, and then we'll put that off. And then now you got to pay somebody to take it back apart. So while it's apart, you got to fix the things that need to be fixed. What's going to happen, the car's going to end up this shell.
There's Brandon.
Brandon. So this is Reese, he's the owner of the car and his wife.
What's up? This is Leah.
And I was just explaining to them that we got to cure the rust so we can get the car. You don't want to put the car together and then have to take it back apart to fix rust. So while it's apart, you're saving money by fixing it now.
Yeah, definitely.
Even if the car ends up in primer where you've run out of money, but at least you could drive it in primer. But you may end up doing some things that you can finance it or something like that down the road. And the thing is assessing, and I think what he wants your opinion is, where do you feel about the quarter panels and stuff, or do you?
Here at the bottom.
I mean, the bottom areas are easy to fix, but you got rust in here and rust right here. The taillight panel looks like it's okay, but this panel looks bad. And so what are your thoughts on repairing versus?
Once you start changing any of this has to go too. You have to sacrifice other panels to.
Right, but this is a cheap part. This is a very cheap part. You know, but when you got rust in these places, you know, it's all just going to come back. But again, the floor's good, so that's good. The frame rails are good. You know, what do you fix those spots, or do you turn around and just change the whole quarter?
Depending on what kind of car you're trying to build. If you're trying to build a driver that just looks nice to run around every day, I mean, you can just cut this and do patch panels, replace small pieces of it. If this wheelhouse isn't rotted out, same thing. You can cut the outer pieces of the quarter out and change just that. I mean, patch just that, or I believe they sell skins for this car for the quarters.
They sell skins and they'll do the full quarter too.
Right, so you could take that off and replace the outer piece and do the small repairs on the inside of the wheelhouse.
Yeah. But by the time you fix this,
and once you do that,
and this, is it cheaper labor-wise to just change the whole quarter?
Probably put that quarter.
Yeah.
Well, I got a question for you. Underneath, that panel underneath is totally rusted out. The drip rail for the convertible top.
For the convertible top.
Yeah, it's all cancered. If you pull in the quarter panel, would you recommend changing that?
Probably so, yes.
See, all up in here, all at it. You can get in the trunk area, you can see it.
Right.
Get a light.
And again, on these Mustangs, I haven't really messed with them. On 57s, they're bad.
Oh, right.
I know, I see that's why I'm looking all the way across to see how bad it is.
And then you may as well change this part too.
Well, you're going to have to change this part if you change this part.
Exactly.
So, yeah. Now, like I said, again, depending on what you want to do with the car, you can clean that rust out under there and, just try to stop it from getting worse.
That's what I'm thinking.
And leave this, because you can, again, just patch all this stuff, including the quarter panel and stuff like that.
This was repaired once
and have a decent driver for, quite a few years.
Yeah, that's what it's going to stay inside in the garage.
That's
so.
That's definitely a big thing here.
Right.
My whole car was blasted, and it's still. I have 1 or 2 spots coming up. When I let it sit outside for like 2 months, and that was it.
It'll probably, if you keep the car inside, it'll probably last 20 years. You may someday have to re-restore the car, but you might be doing better financially 20 years from now.
Right.
And so you could probably patch it up enough.
If this was all rotted in here and stuff, I would just say go ahead and cut everything off and change it. But since underneath is pretty solid on them, you really could take pieces, small metal, take it, cut it out, weld that back in, and fill over it. Not fiberglass.
Yeah. Do you fool with this type of stuff? Is this something you would do, or you'd rather not?
Mike.
Just trying to see what's the best tackle. And one of my things is that I want my stuff nice. Even though I drive them, I want to turn heads.
This is, even though it gets expensive, this is real. It's cosmetic stuff. Other than if you really got into changing that back pan and stuff like that, that's a little different. But If you're gonna build it and drive it and just keep it inside and stuff, and you don't have that money to spend on it, I would say patch it up, fix everything. But that's why my first question was, what do you want to do with it? Do you want it to be a beautiful show car that's gonna stay nice for a long time, or do you want to?
I want to put my girls through college eventually, and then have this to just, eventually when we get another 10 grand and get into paint and body. That's realistically where I'm at.
Well, should we change the cowl? Because I know for a fact the cowl's rotten. We stuck a scope in there.
That's not too bad to do. So
I mean, we stuck a scope in here, and it's all rotten.
there's so many different ways to do it,
Yeah, I think the floors, the cowl, and if we can change or put a little runner in there that drains out where that rust is.
Well, you could sit in there, come back, or pay somebody to come grind all that up, and then you could treat it with that stuff and put some paint in there and undercoat and get it the best you can to stop it. You could maybe on the inside portion lay some fiberglass in there so the rain doesn't to force it to on the inside.
I just wouldn't do cosmetic body work on the outside with it because it doesn't stick to metal over time. It pops up and it rusts underneath.
So this is the rain gutter for your top.
Right.
So it has when the rain comes, it comes through here and it lands in that spot, and it could rust out. I don't see any rust holes in there.
Right.
So you could clean it up real good, and you could probably tar it up with something to keep it from.
Coat it with something so it doesn't leak, so the well doesn't leak.
They have chemicals and stuff nowadays that they didn't have in 1985 when your daddy built this car.
Right. Also, whenever you're having the top replaced, that's the time to get in there and get all that stuff with no problem.
Well, James said you can unbolt that today and take the back half of this car off and do that today. So you agreed, I'm getting the wiring harness for you, so I'll get that next. I will find that for you so we can start the car.
So what you got, the plan is change the floors, tighten up the back so it's not leaking, and possibly this in the front, same so it's not leaking into the car.
Correct.
Put the top on it and put it back together and leave the paint and body like this for now.
I would prefer that way. I know they wouldn't because while it's stripped down, they want to go to straighten up paint. But we don't know if anything's gonna fit. Like our fenders, we don't know if that's gonna fit. Like we're gonna fitment issues.
You guys got all new stuff for it.
No, the fenders are right here.
Fenders and doors are
I think you
different.
straightened out the fenders already, huh?
No, he did this.
We did this. We pulled this and
Moved the
this
AC.
piece. Yeah.
Yeah, that was out.
So those red fenders, that's what was on the car?
Brand new.
That's
No, we
oh,
took
okay,
out.
okay.
If in a perfect world, while it's stripped down, it should go into paint and body.
Yeah.
But
In a perfect world, yes, this car would be taken apart even further, and technically brought to the body shop now.
If nothing else, before you
Before you put the
do
motor
the
in.
engine compartment before the motor goes in. If you know what color the car is going to be, I would clean all this stuff up. If you're going back red with it, paint all inside, paint all this stuff, paint inside your jams, everything. Even if you have to go back later on and do that metal work, at least your whole jam is painted and you have a stopping point where you don't have to take everything back apart and put it back together again.
Well, I would think if Mike's gonna do any work, like whoever does the cowl while he's working on it, he'll cut that out and weld a piece in and
They can do all that right now, yeah.
and then
If you wanna just do on the
prime it and then like I said the door. Remember Doug Clausen used to race his Shelby with, you could see the red around the windows and the doors and all of that, and then later he painted the car.
And you could
So
do
his
it
car
that
was
way,
primer.
Or you could tape up the outside of the quarter where it doesn't blow on the outside and just do the insides of it, and then when you paint it, you come back in and have a stopping point inside the jam right there. That wouldn't be a problem at all. It'd make it easier to paint when you're ready to do all the body work and paint, really.
Yeah, my 67, he's already painted the jams and the trunk and all that's already been done. And so he was working on the car and found out that the car was twisted, and so we sent it to a metal guy to work on it.
right.
But,
And I could have Mike come over here and, like you said with the scope, I'll let him go in there and look around and stuff too and see what he thinks needs to be changed or maybe other options.
we took, it's rusty right here. You can see it's starting to come in here, which meant,
And this is the time right now.
my 67 coupe was in worse shape than this, and I'm restoring it. So, in order to, you get to the moon, Reese, you shoot for the stars.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, anything's fixable with money.
Well, it's like racing. You ever been drag racing in your life? Or?
A little bit. Yeah.
Well, we used to have a saying, speed costs money, how fast you want to go.
Right.
Speed costs money, how fast you want to go. I mean, that's a 67 coupe. They cut the whole car apart.
Right.
How fast you want to go. So your game plan today is grind up in there, wherever. Yeah. Take these back panels off. I'm going to do some non-greasy stuff that I'm going to take off, and I'm going to bring it with me. So the harness we're going to put in the car is not a 65, 66 wiring harness. It's going to be a harness that for 65 or 66 Mustang, but it has the plastic AC fuses as opposed to those glass fuses. So modern fuses, modern instead of that old setup where you push the fuse and it cuts and cut your finger and stuff like that. So it'll be all new. Let's talk about this for a second. The doors. Your doors are shot. These can be fixed a little bit, but they're ready to go. Other than the windows, these can be bolted with a little bit of work. I mean, an hour's worth of work, both of these doors could go in the car. So they would work just like those fenders would work. I want to talk about one other thing. I know for a fact this is a real Shelby hood. Your dad bought this hood from a guy that had a real Shelby. Why he took it off his car and sold it, I don't know. I think it had hood pins in it, and your daddy fixed the hood pin hole. There may be somebody out there who would want this hood for their 65 Shelby. So it has value on a real Shelby compared to a resto mod or a car that you're just fixing up to drive and have a little fun with. You may be able to, you can buy a duplicate of this hood that looks just like it for a certain amount of money. But there may be a guy who wants a real Shelby hood who needs it for his 300-point classic numbers matching Shelby, that this hood may be worth them buying. So I would consider selling this to help fund the project and putting a reproduction hood on the car. The problem with this hood, and I'm telling you up front, it's rotten up in here. All this has to be changed. So again, the structure of the hood has some issues. So what do you do with it? This is going to cost you money to fix. But if the right guy wants it, it could fund part of the project and you could buy one that needs no work. So that's all I'm saying. That's something you got to come to grips with and understand. Is this hood worth $5,000 to a guy with a real Shelby? I don't know. So if a reproduction costs $1,000 or $800 and you could get 5, that's $4,000 you get to put to your project. It's something you got to think about. Y'all got to think about if it's worth it to you. I wish John was here because he could tell you he's a guru with all this stuff. So I may be saying something wrong, so don't crucify me. As they were building these cars, different manufacturers were producing different things. So they're not all the same, because when they started building these Shelbys, they're building 400 or 500 of them. So how many hoods can you produce in a week or a day in some factory? Of course, this is all handmade because this was all brand new stuff in 1965. Right. So they're all different. I suspect I know the car that this came off of, but I can't guarantee it. So just something to think about.
At the end of the day, I want my dad's car, but what part of this is going to be my dad's car?
Maurice, if you were doing this, what would you be doing? The same thing. So it'd still be your car, the VIN number and the title.
It's still my car now. He ain't changed the title on it. Yeah. Thank you for all the work, Reese.
Yeah, Reese, I bought my 67 coupe that I had back in high school a few years ago. Yeah. The only thing that's still on that car that's original from 1985 when I sold it is the title and the VIN number. I mean, literally the car was so bad with rust that there's nothing left to the original car. I think we kept the roof. I mean...
What up, Ryan?
How you doing?
So, I mean, that's the only thing original to the car is that my wife and I rode in that car in high school. That's it.
You probably did more than Ryan.
No.
That's where you came from.
No, that wasn't him, it'd be his sister.
The car's gone. The car was gone. Nothing more than that. It's still my car, so it's nothing changed.
Right.
But we know where you want to go, and that's fine. And I'm going to order the stuff for you because I want to make sure we got the right stuff. And I know your daddy knows a lot about this stuff, I get it, but the hobbies change. They make every part for this car. Some of the aftermarket parts don't fit too high. I want to put as many Ford parts on my car or good quality parts on my car as I can because it's important to me. So while you're grinding, I'm going to unbolt a few parts that I'm going to take home with me to bead blast. But I'm about done because my 67 is done, painted, and next Monday, not this Monday coming, the next Monday I'm coming in just to put parts on that car so I can get it home. Now, understand your mom and dad are in the cars?
My stepmom, like, she has her 2 cars from her dad. Okay. One's a Thunderbird, and they're show cars. Okay. So they've won like first place at a couple cars.
So you know all about some of this stuff.
Not too much.
Well, you've been around it or heard the stories and stuff like that. So when you say, Reese's doing all this, and you get upset, you say, well, that's what it takes, honey. That's what they're going to tell you.
I'm the kind of person where like, if you're going to do it right. Like, I hate spending money and then having to go back and do stuff, so. It
took me 11 years to do my boss, and that's when I was raising kids. And anytime I had a little money to throw at it, I throw at it. The biggest obstacle I had, and I told my wife, and I remember this distinctly because it was in the late 90s. I was hitting the wall. I couldn't do anything, and I couldn't save enough money to paint the car. I said, I can't paint the car. And she says, why? I said, I can't, with the kids in school and this and that and the other, it's hard to save the money to paint the car. And back then, a paint job was $5,000. And, you know, we're working, got house notes, car notes, insurance, all the things families have. And she says, what's it going to cost? And I said, about $5,000. And she says, why don't you just go borrow the money? And I said, you think that's the right thing to do? She says, we're doing fine, everything's fine. She says, just go borrow the money. You're working for, your dad. You know you're not getting laid off or anything. You're self-employed. And so I went to the bank and borrowed $5,000 and paid the car. And when I got that car home and I put it back in my garage, the car went together in 3 months. That was the hurdle. I had the motor sitting there, the transmission sitting there, the interior. Every night when the kids went to bed, Shay and I, we recovered the seats ourselves. We would do a seat a night, the bottom, the next day the top. It's not hard. I mean, this is not rocket science. My living room and dining room in our first house when we moved to Jackson was full of Mustang parts. Once we got the Mustang built, we put furniture in the living room and dining room. But it was, once I got the car home painted, every night I'd work on it about an hour.
Now Leah's talking like she wants to do it right, so, you know, do we sell the green bike?
Yeah.
Yeah, we sell the green bike.
We can't go on the motor, well, you can, but we can't go on motorcycle rides because I gotta watch the babies.
Right. So get rid of the green bike, see what we can get for that.
Is that, you have 2 bikes or one?
One that's worth money.
Okay.
One's worth like $2,000, the other's worth like over 18.
Yeah.
On a good day. Got the grind wheel. I'm just hitting rust and outer layer. Keep all that debris off. I didn't realize that was getting disintegrated like that.
Yeah.
That's how they work?
No, it ain't made to be spun at that RPM.
Shit's just flying off and I'm like, damn, I'm getting a lot of debris off this mother.
Do it differently. Another level. I'm taking it higher. Watch me. I'm bringing that heat.
Sorry you can't see everything that I'm doing here. Let me just show you.
You ain't seen nothing like this.
How does more rust just appear everywhere? Like I really want to hit this stuff off. A wire brush and a power drill. I need more battery. All right. Oh my gosh, I hope I don't kill myself.
Got what you want, got what you need.
Well, that was close. Oh my goodness gracious. Close call. That wire brush spins at such a fast RPM. Grab the whole of that shirt, see what it does to the metal. Look what it just did to the shirt. Whew, I gotta get more careful.
Nothing like this. Nothing like this. You ain't seen nothing like this. Nothing like this.
Every time you think you got a lot of the rust knocked off, you look at somewhere else and there's more rust. We just got done putting a nice thin layer of indol rust, painting it on pretty liberally on any kind of area that looks like it has rust, and we'll just see what it does and where we go from here. Next thing I'm gonna do is just take some pictures of it and just try to document as much of the process, because as I leave and things get done to it, it's just cool to see the process.
The shit you did so far, I'd give you an A, not an A plus, but I'd give you an A.
8 out of 10?
A.
Oh, an A.
Not an A plus, an A.
I think that's it. I don't know. They might have one screw up here on the inside, Reese. On the inside right up top.
Got some rats. You got a hold of it. All right, we're taking this chrome section off of the rear top, and we're noticing that a lot of these screws actually rusted pretty good, not coming out. So there it goes. Yeah, it doesn't look terrible. Yeah, I don't think we're gonna reuse this top, huh, Dad?
Not the top, the frame rail, yeah. Frame rail, ain't no top left. This whole drip rail where the water drains down the quarters is all ate up. You're getting the cowl done, you're getting the floor done. This is almost a necessity. If you're gonna go that far with the car, you might as well get it done right. I half-assed it because this panel wasn't available when I done it. We had to wait 6 months for this panel to become available. Once you cure this and the floor and the tile panel, the car is 90% rust-free. Well, while we're waiting for James to come take a look at that trunk area, we're gonna go ahead and start sanding on the frame rails. Give them less to do whenever they do put the floors in, that you don't have to paint these frame rails.
Gutter for the convertible top needs to be replaced. The rain gutter itself's going right there.
Right.
If it was just up here, I'd have put pieces in.
Right. All right, there you go. Anything else you want us to tackle?
Just keep cleaning.
Okay. It has a lot of cleaning to do.
We should have brought it to the car wash before we...
We actually pressure washed it 4 times.
Yikes.
With a chemical too.
Time to get dirty.
What we're doing is removing all the battery pairs. This is old fiberglass that they fiberglass over the hose. Then we're pulling up all the fiberglass, so whenever they put the new floor on, it's going to sit where the old seam used to be, and then no more filler, all metal. Scrubbing about 30 years, 40 years of grime off the bottom of a Mustang is not an easy or fun job.
So behind us is the car. We got it pretty cleaned up. Come along for the journey. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Doc Hand's Big Adventure. This is my dad right here. We're restoring this 1965 Mustang. It's gonna get dirty.
It's gonna get dirty. It's a dirty job, but you gotta love it.